You guys are welcome to this particular video. In this particular video, in the crawlers, we'll be creating our style component. So just as you guys can see on this particular Figma file, we'll be creating a component that would allow us use all of this style, right? So just like a little bit reference, and we are modeling a little bit after MUI. Right, so if you're familiar with MUI, you should be familiar with what we're doing. So if you go to MUI documentation under typography, you should be able to see the typography component of MUI and basically how they can actually use variants to change between style. So this is what we want to do using styled component. So that being said, let's get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is to go to our atoms. Under this particular method of arrangement, everything is saved under our atoms, right? So we are going to come over here, we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call it typography. So we'll leave that there. Then we're going to create our file, and the file is going to be called typography. So this particular first one is the major typography, right? So I'm going to say typography.jsx, right? So we're going to have it there. So let's create we don't need this to import React. So this is where our typography lives. So then let's create our style where we'll be creating the style. So we're going to call it on typography.js. So this is where our style component is going to live. So we're going to import. So we're going to call this typography.js. So this is where we are going to import style.component, right? So one of the first components that we actually want to bring in to what we already have is the heading 1. So I'm going to say export constant heading 1 is equal to style.h1. Oops, that's a little error there. Style.h1. So this will allow us to start styling our h1 text actually. So for our h1 text, we want to know what's the font size for our h1 text, right? So for us to get the font size of our h1 text, we have to go back to like our design here. And based on our design, if we scroll a little bit, you're going to see that this is the font family, which is the entire font family of the project, then which we've declared under the global style. So but the h1 text here is 64px. So let's go and do that. So of course in our global style text, that is where we declare the font family as Rubik. So I will go back here under our h1. Our font size is what now? Our font size is 64px. We are going to put it there 64px, right? That is 64 points. Now, so the next thing that we are going to have as well is going to be like our font weight. So we want to have our font weight, sorry, not font size, font weight. So let me put it here. I'll save this now. So we want to have our font weight. So our font weight is going to be stuff like bold or thereabouts and the rest, right? So permit me to just put bold. So remember, font weight for CSS is to make stuff bold. So let's go back to our typography and actually make use of this thing that we just basically created. So I'll click on typography, and for me to create my h1 now, I need to import it. So I'll say import heading 1. So this is importing heading 1. So I actually made a mistake here. Instead of me to name it typography, right? This particular one should be called typography style. So let me rename it. So I should call this typography style. Alright, so I've renamed it, so it makes sense now. So you see, this is typography style. So let's correct this now. So this should be coming from typography style.js. So that is where our styling lives. Why this other one is just basically typography. So now that I have that corrected, so the next thing I want to do now is to basically create my heading 1. So I will go over here now and I will say this should actually return my heading 1, right? So I will say permit me to do something like this. I will say heading 1, right? So whatsoever they type instead of heading 1 should actually come inside here, should be inside here. So because of that now, that is why we are going to use this particular keyword called children. So that's what children does. So with children now, right, I could pick whatever thing that is inside that particular component and I will place it here. So that is how we use that particular children, right? So once we have that now, we have the heading 1. But one of the things that we also want to create, we want to create a props for variants in such a way that we can have heading 1 and heading 2 and so on and so forth. So for us to do that, I have to come back here and I'll create the props. I'll pass the props here. I'll say variant. So this is going to be my variant. So variant, variant. So let me go ahead and actually style my heading 2. So I will come over here now, just copy all of this, I'll paste it, and I'll change this to 2, and at the same time too, I'll also change this to 2, like this. So I'll go back to my code and my design and see what is the font size of ND2. So based on what we have here, the font size of ND2 is 50px, right? So I will come over here, I will say 50px. Now this is it. Now let's go back to our typography again as well, and let's try to use this. So let's try to use the variant. So now that we have variant, this simply means that if the variant of what the users are actually setting is equal to h1, this is what should happen. So because of that now, we are going to say something like this. We are going to say return. Now normally this is going to be inside an if else statement. So we are going to say if variant. So let me copy this variant here. So if this particular variant is equal to, if this particular variant now is equal to h1, like this, right? So I'm going to put an if statement here. So if this particular variant is equal to h1, this is what we want to see. Else, I'm going to have an else statement there. Else, if variance, like this, let's start it. If variance is equal to h2, so I will stop at h2 now, but we'll keep going on and on and on and on till we get to the last one, right? So if variance, else if variant is equal to h2, so if variant is equal to h2, so this should display my h2. So let's bring that in now. So and inside it we are going to have our children, right? The children. So let me just go ahead, let me squash this. Don't worry, it's going to like rearrange itself. Else, let's just put that there so that everything's going to be corrected. All right, perfect. So once I save that, it's going to like just rearrange it for me based on the prettier extension I'm using on my VS Code. So I say if variant is equal to h1, it should give us h1. Else, if variant is equal to h2, it should give us h2. So now let's attempt to like basically like use this in our real project, right? So where is that place that we have? Okay, so now the thing now is we've not like basically like we've not created routes, so they have not been routing yet in this particular project. It's still very bland, as you can see. Everything is happening inside my index.js file. So let us test it here. So I'm going to import typography, and I'm going to say import typography from blah blah blah. So you could see typography is coming from that particular end. So once we have that there, if I come over here now, I want to use my typography, so I can use this as variants, and I could say h1. No, I could use it now as h1. Then I will say variants. So this is what? Let's say this is this. Let me just type heading 1. Heading 1. So let's do this one to heading 2, and I will go ahead and put heading 2 here. So let me save this now. So the moment I save this now, you could see now that we are actually changing the props of this particular typeface. So let's go back to where this thing is. So you could see it now. This is heading 1, right? And this is what heading 2. And they are actually both bold. Of course, if we say heading 3, or if there is something like heading 3, it will not work, right? Because it's basically just it's not returning anything. So even if we put heading 3 here, we didn't actually have any stuff on heading 3. See, heading 3 will not return anything. Why it's not returning anything is the fact that right here we said that if it is not heading 1 or heading 2, it should just basically return bland. So another thing again that we could do is that if they impute wrong something, we could just say if it is wrong something, just return the blank text. But of course, the blank text will not show except it's inside a div, for example. So our default div now, for example, could be like a paragraph text like that, right? That is if at all we desire to like create a div. So that would be like our default text when when a variant is actually not like passed inside the component. So it's just going to be like a paragraph tag, right? So we want to use this concept right now to also create another font weight, another variant that is called weight. Hey, Control Z. So W-E-I-G-H-T, I'll do comma. So we want to create another variant that is called weight. So this weight variant is the same thing that we did inside our design here. Of course, as you can see, our design here has regular as weight. We have medium as weight, and we also have bold as weights. So we have like 3 weights. So each variant, H1 has regular, medium, and bold. H2 has regular, medium, and bold. So let's implement that in our work too as well. So for us to implement it, the first thing I want to do as we pass in the props in here, so I'll just copy this now. We want to ensure that this one and this one too, they both have that particular props. So I'm going to say weight is equal to, in curly braces, weights. So that is how we are going to pass this particular props into these particular different styles. So once we've done that, so the next thing that we'll actually want to do now is to declare the weight. So one of the things I love to do is basically just create like a simple constant variant here for my weight. So I normally say stuff like regular. So as let's say regular here is equal to 400. So 400 weight is like regular. So let's duplicate it. So I'm going to have like semi-bold. Semi-bold should be like 600 thereabout, or semi-bold should be like 500 thereabout. Then bold should be like 700. All right, cool. So that's what we are going to be using, right? So once we have that there, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to create another constant again. So I'm going to do something now. Just watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to say constant font weight. See, I just want to do this one. Constant font weight is equal to so this is going to be our props. So I'm going to pass in our props here, and normally when you're using stuff like this, you always pass props. So I'm going to pass it there. So I'm going to return props. If you are familiar with font style component, you should be familiar with what I'm about to do. So this is props, then the I want to spell weight. Props.weight, which is the weight that is coming from the variance. So if the props.weight is exactly equal to semi-bold, semi-bold, right? And guess what should happen? Semi-bold should happen, right? So semi-bold should happen. Else, if props, let me just copy this, I'll not just be repeating myself. If props.weight is equal to bold, guess what we should happen? We should have bold, right? Else we should have what? Regular. All right, let me save this. So printer will help me rearrange it. So this is it now. So if the props.weight is semi-bold, we should have semi-bold, which is going to be like 500. If props.weight is equal to bold, we should have. So this is like just saying putting 700, 500. So it's not by force to actually declare it here, but for some certain reason, I just love to do it like this. We could actually take away this line if we feel like it's like SS line. So, but let's use it before we take away that particular line, as long as we're understanding what we are trying to do here. So once we have this now, you guys already guess what I'm going to do, right? So I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to say, instead of me saying bold now, I'm going to pass that particular variant and that particular property. So I'm going to say font weight. So font weight is what I'm going to pass here, which is this particular one. So of course I'm going to pass font weight here. Alright. So if I pass font weight now, if we do this now, remember that the default is regular, right? Default is regular. So if we go back to our work, I'll take a look at it. You can see that it is no longer bold again. You see, default is now regular. So if I want to create bold and semi-bold, so let's try it. Let's go back to our index and let's try to create. Let me delete this one. Let's try to create heading 1, semi-bold and bold. So I'm just going to duplicate it twice. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to say weight, and the value of the weight now is going to be semi-bold, and I'm also going to say weight 2 as well. The value is going to be okay, let's call this one bold. So this one is the first one is regular, the second one is semi-bold, while this other one is bold. Alright, let's see if that's Prettier is adding me some spacing that I don't want it to add. Okay, this is what we have. So you could see that now. Now this is heading 1 regular, heading 1 semi-bold, heading 1 bold, right? So it also works with the H2 too, right? So if we add a weight here, and we'll call this one semi-bold, right? And of course, as you can see, it's now semi-bold, right? So basically that is how like you play with these things. Now from our design here, guess what we want to play with? We want to play with not just only H1. So we've done like all the H1s. We've also been able to do all the H2. So the next thing I want to do the H3. So for the H3 now, the H3 is the font size is 40 for the H3. So let's go back to our typography. So if we come back here and we want to do our H3, want to create our H3, I will just like basically copy this. Our H3 is what again? I've forgotten. 40. Okay. H3 is 40. H4 is 28. So I will just permit me to call this H3. Right? I'm going to call it H3. H3. Alright, that's cool. H3. The only thing I'm going to change is just change the font size. So I'm going to call this H340. I'm going to call this one H4 is what's 24, right? H5, so let's create H5 and H6. So I'm going to have H5 and H6. So our H5 and H6 is 22 and H6 is 20. So 22 and 20. So H5 is 22 and this is 20. Alright, everything looks cool. H6 is 20. Alright, so once we have that here, we save. So all we need to do now is to start creating the if else statement, right? So for us to create the if else statement, in order for me not to for us not to repeat ourselves so much, so I'm just going to come here now. I'm going to say alright, let me just keep doing this. Alright, so when you have a lot of if else statements, it might be a little bit confusing, right? Sometimes I used to be very careful while working on it. So we have if variance is equal to this, right? We want to have our heading 3 All right, L, so heading 3, let's put our children in it. All right, else it gives us the regular stuff, so we'll do the same thing again. If variant is equal to h4, want to have our heading 4, so in between it is the children. Don't forget children. Then let's put our else here and save that there again. So if variant is equals to h5, want to have our heading 5. Here's heading 5. Want to have our heading 5, and of course you already know that this is children. Then this is our else. All right, we'll do the same thing again. If variant is equals to h6, so we want to have our heading 6 and our children as well. Then we'll have else here, so we'll save this. So once we save this, now we have h1, h2, h3, h4, h5 and h6. So all of these things are the things that we currently have. So now we just need to copy these variants, copy it. So we'll just replicate it here, 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 and paste it here. All right, cool. Everything is working fine. So if we go back to our design now, this, and permit me to delete all of this. I don't necessarily need all of this. So let us duplicate this 3, 4, 5, 6 and see if everything is working fine. So 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So let's just call this one 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's save this. Let's take a look at it. You see, so that is how we have successfully have our H1, H2, H3, H4, H5 and H6. You see, so we have all of that, and the beautiful thing about this is that every other variant is also working in all of them. So that means if I come over here and I say wait and I want this should be bold, or this is all I need to make this particular text bold. See, it's bold, right? So is that pretty? So let's undo that. So what other props? So let's just draw a little bit of inspiration from MUI, right? So if you go to MUI typography, you could see that they have a lot of props. Why we just got only 2 props. So they have this particular props called align. So they have a props called align, right? And so far so good. We will only have just only variant and weight. I don't know if they won't have the weight props. I don't think so. But you can see their variants now. They have a lot of variants, right? They have H1 to H6. They have inherit. They have overline. They have subtitle. They have all of this amazing stuff, right? So we are going to have, based on our design here, we are going to have H1 to H6. We are going to have our body. We're going to have like body 1, body 2. We are going to have small 1 and small 2. Then and small 3 too as well. So we have body 1, body 2. We're going to do that later. So, but before we do that, let's take a look at some other amazing stuff that we could add as part of our props, right? So they have these amazing props here, classes and the rest. So we want to have also want to have another props called align. So let's go and work on the alignment props. So of course, the way we will add props to stuff is first and foremost, we come over here. One thing we want to do is that whenever the user add like any other prop, so this particular one is like this particular one now it's like a default props, right? So once you have that default props, just so that we will not forget, let me quickly place that particular default props here. So I'm going to place it here. So this is going to be all our default props. So permit me to just duplicate it and replicate it in all of this. All right, I'll paste it. So we have our props. All right, so everything is looking great now. and it's looking better. So the next thing I want to have again, also want to have alignment, right? So let's put our align here. So let's say this is our align, right? So let's test the alignment with just H1 before we'll repeat it across other stuffs, right? So for us to do that, we're just going to type align here equal to, in quotes, align as well. So let's try with H1 now. So since we have it in H1, so let's implement it inside of H1 alone. So once we want to, how do we implement this inside of H1? So of course in CSS, remember how we align stuff, if you can remember, right? So if we want to align stuff in CSS, what's the way we use text align, right? So that's the property. So text align, so we'll just bring in the props. So we'll just do something like this. We'll do something like this, and of course this is how you pass props normally in a style component, right? So we do stuff like this. So we'll say if props.align, so props.align, so if props.align is set, so that is what this is telling us. If props.align is set, we should say what? Props.align. So we should set that exact value that the user, else we should say what? We should inherit the default component, right? So we will say inherit. So inherit will allow us to inherit the parent style. So let's save this. So now we have this, let's go and see how we can actually align this. Let's see if the alignment will work now. So that means if we come here, we'll say align, and we'll say let the value be center. So let's see if this is going to like really I don't know why this stuff is always bringing this thing. I hate it. Always to align center. So let's see if this test is going to be centralized now. So let's come back here. Maybe I'm testing it. So you see it's center. Wow, that's cool. That means the alignment is working. So let's say align right. See, it's going to the right. Wow, that's cool. Of course, alignment by default is left, right? So our alignment is working just exactly as we want it to work, right? So this is cool. So another thing again that and as you guys can see, we've been able to implement that, right? So we're able to implement three major variants, right? So any other thing again, our props would actually do that for us, right? So the props property that we've included will do that for us. So let's see if we could derive some inspiration from here. They did align too, so we don't necessarily need to include class name because we've done props. So I don't want us to like do that particular one. I think we are actually good to go with what we currently have, and that will serve us pretty fine, right? So let's go ahead and replicate it on other components too, so that it's not going to, because for example now if we include align equal to left here, I don't know why it's always bringing this thing, align equals to left here, and not left, let's do something that is going to make it show. Let's say center to H2. You are going to notice that H2 will not obey that alignment. So that is because of we have not actually implemented it here. So for us to do that in all those other ones, we just need to copy this align and paste it here. So let me paste it here, 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 and here. Alright, so we'll paste it there. Alright, perfect. So once we have it there, so we have to come back here again. This line, we'll copy it too as well. We'll paste it here, 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 and here. So I think this is pretty good, right? If you guys agree with me, this is like pretty good. So the next thing that we'll also want to do now is to take a look at our other component, right? So let's take a look at other one. So remember that we have not, so you see H2 is not working. So remember that based on our design here, we've not done paragraph. so which is the body text. I'm going to call that paragraph like P1 and P2. So we need our P1. So our P1 from what we have here is 17px. I'm not really comfortable with it being 17px. Okay, no problem. We have 17px and we have 14px. So this is what we are going to do. So we are going to say, let's copy all of this and paint. So this is going to be paragraph text, but it's going to be, let's call it what should we call it now? Let's call it body 1, because that's what it's called there, right? So let's call it body 1. So this is going to be 17px, because that's what we have there. So we play the same thing, so basically just the same thing. And let's call this one body 2, and this is still going to be paragraph text, and this is going to be 14px. All right, so once we have that there, you guess that, right? So the next thing is coming here to do our if else statement, right? So for our if else statements, let's just copy some of these things. So come here, say paste this. If it is this, we are expecting body 1. So this is going to be, guess what it's going to be? It's going to be P1. So we're going to have our children in here, and we're going to have our else there. Oops, there's a little error there. All right, so let's do the same thing again. Let's do the same thing again. If variant is equal to P2, all right, that's paragraph 2, right? So, or it depends on what we want to call it. I love to call it P2, and the rest, but because of we are using body 1, I'm just thinking, since we are using body 1 and body 2, why not just call it B2? Let's even see, let's derive some inspiration from here and see what they called theirs, right? So okay, they just called it as body 1, body 2. So let's just call as B1 and B2. B1 and B2. All right, cool. B1 and B2, let's have it there. So we have our body 2, and this is it. And we are going to have our children in here, and there is an else statement here. All right, perfect. So we've done for body 1 and body 2. So the next thing we want to do for small, right? So let's come back to this. So what are we doing for now? Where are we working for now? We're working for where is it now? We want to create our small 1. So we have small 1, small 2, and small 3, and the small is we have 12px, we have 10px, and we have 8px. Wow. So we have 12, 10, and 8. So let's do that. So this one now we are going to say small 1, and we're going to call this one 10px. Now in normal cases, your small text is always span, so you might not want to create your small text with paragraph text if you like, or sometimes you can also choose to create a paragraph text with that. So let's just leave that paragraph text for now. So if we have small 1, so we started with 12px, sorry. So let's have small 2. So let's have small 2, and small 2 is what? 10px, don't forget. Then let's have small 3. Small 3 is what? 8px. Alright, so we have that created there. So let's come and replicate it here too as well. So I'll paste it here. If this is, let's call this S1, which denotes for small 1. So S1, let's have our small 1 here with the children here, and we're going to have our else statement here. So we'll just basically repeat the same thing. So we're going to have, if it is S2, let's do this as small 2, right? And we're going to have our children here as well, and let's have some else statement here. So the last but not the least, if we have S3, so we are done. I'm getting excited. X3, so this is going to be small this stuff is acting like we did not export it. Let's see. You see, we did not, I named it body 3. The one that is not bringing the it should actually bring this thing from your hair, something like this. Small 3. So let's call this children and else. All right, so everything is done and dusted. So and let's just include all we have here. Let's include our weight and our align and our props to them too as well. So these 3 things are actually needed. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All right, let's paste it there. Okay, this is what we have, and everything is coming out nice, right? So let's try it under our styles. Let's try it and see if everything works. Let's just let's take this alignment off for now. We might not necessarily need the alignment. So let's do this one. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So this is P1, P2, S1, S2, S3. So this is we saying small 1, body 1, body 2, so small 2 and small 3. All right, let's see how it works now. Let's see it here. So you could see with this now we have all our typography set up. So we have heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, 4, 5, 6, body 1, body 2, small 1, small 2, small 3. So with this now we've technically implemented all of this right now in this particular project. So anytime that we need typography, all we just need to do is to call that particular component and add our required properties, and we'll not have all of those stuffs repeating itself again, right? So I believe this is amazing, and I believe it's an amazing job, right? So what are we going to do now? Let's go back here, and that is it, guys, for this particular video. So thank you guys for watching. So if you want to learn more about this particular design system that we are building, so for now we are calling it Midnight Crawlrs, and we are basically designing the design on Figma, and also creating the code base on using React styled components, just the same similar stuff that they did here with MUI design. So if you want to learn the nitty-gritties of these things, you might actually want to join us. So let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comments if you'd love to join us, and I'll also leave some information inside the description of this particular video. So thank you guys for watching.